All right, so welcome to another episode of Ethos of a Warrior. Today, my special guest is Tom Connally. Tom has written a book.
It's called Becoming a Leader, a roadmap for my daughter and the aspiring leader. It's a 100-page book. The title alludes to, I wrote it for my daughter as she was graduating from the Naval Academy and taking her commission into the Marine Corps. It started off as an epic essay. My dad used to write us epic essays. He was a Master Chief in the Navy. World War II vet, and he would write us these epic essays about leadership and what you should be thinking about as a lieutenant. And it kept getting longer and longer and longer. And then I said, it's too long and I'm trying to go the wrong direction. If you've never written a book, then you always confront the thing with who am I to write a book kind of thing? And what would I ever say about leadership that hasn't been said in 5,000 years? But I realized that I just needed to tell her what I thought was most important as you become a leader. I said, I need to keep this short, something that you can read for a young leader. It's very Marine-ish. There's a lot of Marine terminology, and some of the best feedback I've gotten is from people who never served in the military. They had to go look up some stuff, but they really enjoyed it because I tried to keep it so that no section is greater than 3 pages. And that it's 100 pages long, and you can put it in your, cargo pocket or in your purse or in your briefcase or whatever it is. And I try to use stories, anecdotes from my time serving. I gave it to a friend of mine who'd never been in the military, and I said, here you go. And he read it, and he said, look, I like it, but your whole book is about the last section. You've kind of led it all up to that. So why don't you just reorganize it? There were 5 things, and at the time, I was spending a lot of time talking to young lieutenants at Quantico. I was living in Northern Virginia, and I would go over there. They have these cocktail hours where they talk about different occupational fields, et cetera. And so I was invited over to go and shoot the breeze with them, and every one of them would ask, what does a battalion commander expect? And I said, really, it's about 5 things. It's about being competent. It's about owning the mission. It's about going the extra mile for your people, right? And surrounding all of that is the idea that you have to learn something every day and teach something every day. And that's something my dad used to say way back when, learn something every day. And then there's one thing that I call the prime imperative, and that's the fundamental thing. And I tell the story in the book, but the fundamental thing for a leader, your one thing as a leader is your people. That's the one thing. Somebody even wrote a book called The One Thing. They stole it. No, I'm kidding. They didn't steal it. But it is the one thing that a leader has to focus on is your people. And that even more so is to believe that every one of your people has the capacity to be the hero. I'll give you a quick example. In Iceland, when I was in Iceland, we were training up in northern Norway. And the whole squad they were just so cold, and they were, they were focused inward. They weren't focused outward anymore. They were worried about being cold. And the most unassuming, not the big tough, Lance Corporal stepped up and he took control. He took control of the squad, and the sergeants and the corporals were all listening to him because he had his head on straight and he was focused on what was going on. Here was a guy that you never thought was going to be the hero. He became the hero because he had what it took to do what needed to be done at that time. And you never know who the hero is going to be. So you have to treat all of your people like they're gold, like they're going to be the hero. You've got to believe in them. And if you do that, boy, they'll follow you anywhere. They'll carry you anywhere. They'll make anything happen. And it's absolutely true. And so the prime imperative, those 3 values, and then teach and learn. So I just split the book up into those big sections, but there's all kinds of little pieces inside of there. Go back to things that I learned. It's not a deep theoretical. My brother was like, this could be a really good tome. I said, I don't want it to be a tome. I want it to be a handbook. I want it to be a roadmap. I want people to young leaders at any level to look at it and go, am I doing this? This is something I need to be competent. How do I become competent? How do I become proficient? I need to own the mission. It needs to be mine. What do I do? How do I do that? How do I own the mission? Well, take responsibility. Okay, how do I do that? And there are some little tidbits in there. Being competent, you have to understand what you believe and what your values are. And so there's a little piece in there about how do you do that? How do you decide what's important and then go the extra mile. And that's really about relationships. That's really about how do I make sure that I'm doing what my people need from me. I have a saying, leaders don't get to be the leader they want to be. They have to be the leader their organization needs. I never commanded an organization where I got to be the commander I wanted to be. But sometimes an organization needs someone who's going to push them. And sometimes they need a delegator. And sometimes they need someone who's extraordinarily technically competent. And those things are what the leader has to be. The leader has to be what the organization needs. You do not get to choose what that is. The issues of the organization are going to create that, whether that's people things or external things. I waited 20 years to be an artillery battalion commander, and within 3 months, they told me, you're going to Iraq and you're not bringing any artillery. You're going to do all of these other things. And so we became the economy of force for the 1st Marine Division in the Al-Anbar province. And my Marines were running convoys and a detention facility and 2 FOBs and doing all kinds of things that they weren't specifically trained to do and that they had to learn to do. And they performed exceedingly well, amazingly well. And everybody took care of them in the theater. And they did things that nobody else did before or after. The mission set got so big that they broke it up into several different units doing it instead of one battalion. Those Marines did just amazing things. People would say, we need you to do this. And my 3 would go, sir, we're not trained for that. I said, we're not trained for any of this. Can we figure it out? Can we assess it? Can we plan it? Can we write the order? Can we do the pre-combat checks and inspections? Can we do some kind of a rehearsal? If we can do those things, then we can do this and we'll do it. And we did that day in and day out. Our Marines did amazing things. But the organization, the leader has to be what the organization needs. That's a hard one to learn sometimes, but you have to learn it. And you have to be willing to do that. Leaders who don't want to do that limit themselves.
You wrote the book for your daughter. Did you finish it before she graduated? Was she able to read it before she commissioned?
No, I didn't. She read a draft of it while she was at the basic school, and then I published it just as she was graduating from the basic school. Before she got out in the operational forces, she was able to read it. She would say things like, I've heard you say this before. Well, I hope so. Hope you heard me say it before. She still refers back to it and periodically sends me little things, a highlight or something from the book. And that's nice. But now she's a captain, so she should be past the lieutenant piece. Now she should be teaching these things. My son has a copy. I think he's given away several copies down at Texas A&M. But he's getting ready to go to OCS and become a Marine officer when he graduates.
I think that's every parent's goal, is to be able to pass your knowledge down to the younger generation. Right? That's pretty awesome that they're somewhat following in your footsteps, but like you said, finding their own way.
That's what you hope for. I had no intention for either of my children to become Marines. That was their choice. And they both surprised me with it, to tell you the truth. Am I honored that, and am I proud of them? Absolutely. No doubt. I wanted to make sure that they were doing something that they want to do and that they feel strongly about. I said, look, I told them the same thing that my dad told all of us. He said, I would hope that my children would find some time in their life to serve their country. And that's all he said. We grew up in a very patriotic house. We had a flagpole out in front of our house, and our house did everything but pitch and roll. My mom was a true patriot, although she died when I was young. Everything about what my dad did and what our country was about, she was a tremendous proponent of patriotism and making sure that we all learned what were we founded on? What were those values? What's the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and what does duty mean? And I remember watching her sit on the floor in the living room as the POWs came home in 1974, and watching her just weep at watching those men come home, because she was so proud of them, and it was so deep to know that they had endured so much for our country and did so proudly. You want your children to feel those things that you feel. And that's hard. I used to say that to my Marines. When I was in Iceland, I'd get these youngsters who'd been in the Marine Corps for maybe 3 months, and they were only going to be there for a year, and we would have a Marine Corps birthday ball or some other Veterans Day celebration or something, and you're going to see the old guys and they're going to toast and they're going to cheer and get excited about all this, and you're kind of not feeling it right now. I understand that, and I can't tell you when that's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And one day you're going to be standing on the street corner and the national anthem's going to play or the Marine Corps hymn's going to play, and you're going to snap to attention instinctively. And then you'll realize that what it was all about, because that's when it'll show. And that's what that prime imperative is all about, right? Believing in your people, knowing that they have that capacity and that ability, and that they're going to, when the time comes, step up. That's what we do.
So for those that are listening, where can we find this book by Tom Connally? Where is it available?
It's on Amazon. You can get it in Kindle and you can get it in print. And if you want to they can go to my website, ConnallyConsulting.com. There's a link there to my book as well. I didn't write it because I wanted to be a multi-zillionaire. I wrote it because I wanted leaders to have something that they could reflect back on and start setting out their roadmap for how they become better. And I think that those principles are things that, whether you're private or you're a CEO, those are things that we can all aspire to.
So even though it's written by a Marine, it's written in easy language, applicable to Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, Navy, and civilians alike, right? Yep. Easy read, broken down into bite-sized chunks, easy takeaways. Should be mandatory reading. If you're an ROTC instructor out there, you're looking for something easy to give to your folks.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys out there that have been doing that.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your day, Tom, to join us. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close out?
All things are possible with prayer and heavy deadlifts.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And as always, folks, stay hungry, stay true.